Hola everyone! Today I'm doing something that is very new for me that I've been meaning to do for a long time. I realize there's 1,000 other people who do this too, and better than me, but I've been wanting to do this for a really long time now. This will hopefully be a part of a series of videos where I take a piece of media, preferably related to art and/or animation, I review it, and all the while I draw a piece relating to my review. This is partially inspired by Rad Art, a series of videos hosted by Beth B. Rad on the YouTube channel Snarled. If you don't know what that is, the host picks a famous historical and/or pop culture icon. She tells us about them and why they're so rad. Then she draws or paints them using various different mediums. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to record anything done traditionally, so for now the only medium for these pieces is going to be digital. Today, I'll be reviewing a webcomic called No Future by Kura on Tapastic, also known as Kurapika on DeviantArt and Kura Art Dump on Tumblr. The webcomic is not very well known, but has been a favorite of mine for a long time. It's a webcomic that starts out slow, but it was intriguing enough when I encountered it. As I continued to read and the story unraveled, it improved a lot and it continued to get better with every page. Let's start with the story. Death is final and cannot be changed, even by gods. The god of death accidentally took the life of Andrew Perkison before it was his time to go. In an attempt to compensate, Death asks Era and Eon, two lesser gods, to go back in time to warn Andrew of his fate and give him a second chance at living his life so that he may live it with as much fulfillment as possible before his untimely encounter with death. Andrew must now try to meet his life goals before he dies, while balancing school, family, his social life, a relationship, and living alongside gods. This is the summary of the comic that Kura has written. To go into a bit more detail without spoiling much, Andrew's soul was reaped at the age of 37. It is assumed, at least I personally assumed, that the comic will now chronicle Andrew's new life from when he was born at age 14 until death. While he tries to change his life, he begins to change fate itself, making the actual god, Fate, displeased, to say the least. This is just the main plot. There are a few B, C, and D plots going on as well, such as Andrew getting visions from the future that no longer exists, a subplot involving a battle that went down primarily between the fate and time gods, and a mysterious group of people who seem to be pretty important, but like I said, no spoilers. On to the art. Now you may have noticed that the art I've been showing is both colored and black and white. Originally, the whole comic was all in black and white, but fairly recently, Kura has been going back and realigning and adding color to old pages, so now's the perfect time to begin reading, in my opinion. The thing about the art that a lot of people might not like at first is that it's got a very anime-like style. Despite how largely popular anime itself is, the style is often frowned upon, especially within the art community. This is due to the fact that the style is pretty much everywhere, and since it's so easy to use, it doesn't take as much skill, or so they say. However, just because it's a very common style doesn't mean all art using the style is bad. There are plenty of works out there with this style that look very good. There's a reason this style has influenced so many out there. What people don't like is when the style isn't done very well. So the question is, does No Future still look good? In my opinion, yes. I've been reading it for a long time, and during that time, I noticed an exponential improvement in Kura's art. You can see a large change in this example of an earlier page, before it was redrawn, after the lines were fixed the first time, and now the lines have been reworked again and some color has been added. The lines are clean, the anatomy works, and all in all, it has remained consistent. Another thing I like to pay attention to when I look at the art is the composition of each page. The pages are fairly well laid out and easy to understand, if a bit standard and somewhat basic. However, later pages do a very good job of adding to the story through the layout. One complaint I would have would be that when looking at the faces of the characters, a lot of them look similar. That, unfortunately, is a side effect of the art style that Kura has chosen. However, each character is distinct enough that it is not a huge setback. It's fairly easy to tell each character apart based on hair and eyes, and sometimes scars and clothing. Some characters have their own unique body language. Some seem to be more stiff, upright, while others are more relaxed and some even timid. Another thing that helps set each character apart is the way that they're written. That leads me to my next topic, the writing. The comic starts out relatively mundane. A young boy, Andrew Perkison, wakes up late for school, arrives late, curses out a teacher, then gets sent to detention. You learn that he wants to become a singer despite his father wanting him to become a doctor. It might not be very interesting, but you get a feel for the main character and what his life is like. In fact, as all characters get introduced, Kura does a very good job of helping the reader get to know the character. This helps keep interest during less exciting moments in the story. As the plot begins to unravel, you begin to learn more about Andrew's situation. Not only does he have to succeed at living a good life, he has to live with the minor time gods who are protecting him from the fate gods who are displeased with his messing with fate. I remember when I first started reading this comic and I got to the very first fight between one of the lesser time gods and the youngest sister of fate, and I remember getting really pumped up. While the art in No Future may sometimes look flat, especially back then, I have to give Kura props on her excellent writing. The creative settings, the fun and intriguing interactions between the characters, and the stakes of each fight are what really make the fights in No Future enjoyable. But what really got me about the first fight was the weapons. Era used clock handles, while the Fate Sister used large spinning needles, representing how she is the sister that spins the threads of fate. It may be a very simple choice, but I thought it was quite creative and a hell of a lot more interesting than just regular old swords. This fight is also when the plot really picks up. Not only is a challenge introduced for Andrew, but it's also where Era, who is an important side character, gets some solid character development. The comic may be quite long already, but there is still a lot of questions left unanswered. In fact, from what I understand, this comic is supposed to follow Andrew throughout his teenage and adult years until his early death, and how abbreviated those years will be is not yet known. But currently, the comic is at the point when Andrew is only 15. Keep in mind, it started when he was 14. I can only assume there is still much, much more left to go. We will have to see. All in all, I really enjoy reading No Future. It's one of the few webcomics that I still keep up with. That being said, there is a reason why I'm so devoted to sharing this comic to everyone and having it be my first review. Now, it has its problems, and it's not the best out there. One of the main issues being that the dialogue can sometimes sound a bit forced. This is especially the case in earlier chapters. In fact, most, if not all my problems are within the first couple of chapters, where the art wasn't as good. Like I said before, it started a bit slow, and it was kind of confusing. I actually had to read it twice to fully understand what was going on. However, once I did understand, it was a lot more enjoyable. And I do mean it when I say it gets better after that. So what is it that makes this comic so special? For me, it's the complete devotion that this artist Kura puts into her comic. In her descriptions and bios in social media, Kura mentions that she suffers from early onset arthritis, and it makes it very difficult to draw. But despite this, she still wants to continue drawing. No Future started out as a draw everyday project, so Kura would have something to continue drawing every day. And for the most part, she succeeded in keeping her schedule. For me, that is one of the most inspiring things I've ever heard. All this, and she still manages to create a wonderful and entertaining story. So if someone were to ask me what webcomic I would suggest for them to read, No Future is always my first suggestion. Okay, so before I end the video, I just wanted to say that I know I said I'd make this a series of videos, but I don't really think that's happening anymore. I've come to realize that reviewing anything puts me under a lot of stress. I didn't want to be unfair when reviewing this, but it was difficult to articulate exactly what I wanted to without spoiling parts of the comic. Not to mention, it's quite long, and it's not even done. So I probably should have picked a short and finished comic as my first review. I just really wanted to do this one. Even though reviewing is something I've been wanting to do since before I even started posting speed paints, I don't think I'm any good at it, so I should maybe just stick to shitty half-animated videos. As well, this drawing took me like 7 hours, and I couldn't speed up the footage too much, otherwise it would give you and me a headache. And I didn't have enough audio recorded for the long-ass speed paint, so I had to cut out a lot of the footage. Anyways, here you have the finished piece. Okay, now that I have this video out of the way, you can expect to see more animations and speed paints coming real soon. In the meantime, check out my other social media like Twitter and Instagram down in the description, and if you want to support me, consider taking a peep at my commission prices, which are now available, and I'll put them in the description. And if you can't pay, you can always spread the word for me, 'cause I need money. Over and out, my dudes.